very well funded for them to grow into mega big tools. So it's very early to say which of these tools is going to be in your final three, in a few years from now. But let's understand these tools a bit more. Let's try to see where they actually work. How does it all fit into the workflow? So to me, the tools like Midjourney, Runway, Mage, DALL-E, all these are very creative tools, right? They don't give you a lot of control in terms of what you want to generate. Of course, you can use text or image or any of that to control the output, but it is still provides a lot more creative output, but very less control. It's very easy to use. It's web-based and doesn't require much training or whatever, right? And typically used at a very early stage of a project. As you keep moving, and while you sketch, and then now you have a sketch, you want to take that sketch and do something with those sketches. So you need a bit more control than what, say, Midjourney can offer you. Then you got to go tools like Leonardo or Prom AI. And by the way, 3 months down the lane, if I have to give the same presentation, things will change again, okay? Because that's how fast the features are being added to these tools, okay? So this is all as of today, 25th March. And then when you want really very high control and you want to be more defined in how you want to produce some of these images, you are depending on Stability AI. You have what? Huh? Where's my mouse? Okay. So the point about Stability AI and automatic 1111 and all this provides a bit more control, while it also provides a much steeper learning curve for a designer to understand and use these tools in a workflow, but they provide more control, they're more defined, and can produce really compelling outputs as well. So having known all this, what does our role become as architects? How should we look at these tools? As designers, how should we approach these tools in our workflow? As architects and designers, our role is that of a creator, right? We want to create stuff, and we've always enjoyed doing that. Now we also have to do this, which is that of a curator. So we will have to keep moving between these two roles of being a creator and a curator, sometimes going back to being a creator and then coming back to being a curator. So there is that constant orchestration between these two roles now that with AI that we may have to do. So from now on, I'm going to show you a few instances of how we could use this in our work. So for example, from an architecture imagery concepts, you could actually use this very creatively to explore just ideas, okay? You don't really need something that tells you what the design is, but you are curious to understand, say, how will a clubhouse in in an ultra-modern clubhouse in a marina will look like, because there's a project for a marina now. You want to understand different ways you could make this work, and you are using this as a mood board, just like your Pinterest, except that this time your Pinterest is a lot more defined to what you actually want to see, what you want to see. You can also use it for many interior concepts. You can create cafe interiors, Mexican wall patterns, or you can keep generating the same kind of interiors in different ways. You can have minimalist interiors with cabin in the woods and person standing next to it, but then you can see different variations of the same image. You can also create material palette concepts if you are into colors and wanting to get different colors and ideas of different colors that you can't really see what you want in Pinterest. You can use it to generate these kind of beautiful sample selection. FF&E concepts. I hear echo. Yeah. Okay. I still hear an echo. So FF&E concepts, I think the most important thing about using Midjourney is you can combine images along with prompts also, right? So then you are able to see how will a fabric like this woven into a stool or a bar stool will look like, and then you are creating these different ideas of what that piece of furniture can look like, right? Of course, you don't want to put this right in front of your clients for all practical purpose, because if a client says, oh, I love the one that's on the bottom right, let's order that, there is no such furniture, right? So it's all AI. So you will have to be very careful how you address this with your clients. Yes, you can use it for graphic design concepts as well, like we see here, perforated walls on parametric and multi-layers. You can use it to create graphic patterns on squares, different tones, repeatable tones, stylable stuff that you can use it in your Photoshop as well. For product design concepts, if you have something really simple, you can use that to create different ideas that you want to go after, and even align the client initially to get to that idea first before you even start modeling all this by yourself. So it really helps you at a very early stage. Some projects where the clients really wants to see unimaginable stuff, they want to really explore the unknown, yes, this comes to be of very much use. And teams in Gensler, what we do is we use Miro to start using different aspects of the design, and then we all collaborate on that and share this so that we are able to creatively understand how we want to take the design forward. We also use it for hybrid sketching. So what that means is that we love to sketch, like all of you guys. So on an iPad with a pencil, you want to sketch. You don't want to lose that creative agency. But then the background to this image, like you see here, can be AI generated, right? Like, so this is like a very specific atmosphere of a Costa Rican project, Costa Rican forest, and you are trying to create maybe a villa there. So you can use that to generate your background, while your foreground, which is your sketch, can be very, very, very well done by you. Same thing, you're able to create sketch to design alternatives. You're able to create multiple alternatives of design from just a single sketch. Also text to rapid iteration. So in this case, if you see here, the idea of a minimalist house remains changing among the images, but then the background of the Costa Rican rainforest and the cinematic lighting is consistent. So you're able to get that same background effect, but multiple ideas of what that minimalist house can look like. Right, you can do texture to facade iterations. You can start from a texture. You can move from the texture to different aspects of what that image can, what your facade can look like in Midjourney. You can also use vary region optioneering to take a part of that image, part of the image that you really like, and you can keep varying that part alone while keeping the rest of the image consistently the same, right? So these are new ways in which we are exploring optioneering. A good project would be to show how, for a tall building design, we really set out to look at a very interesting facade pattern, and we chanced upon this. We created this pattern in Midjourney. We really loved what it produced, and then instead of just taking this and applying it straight away as a texture in Enscape or whatever, what we did was to actually rationalize this in Grasshopper, right? So take that actual idea, you rationalize that in Grasshopper, try to understand what exactly could be the facade, right? So that add that depth to it, you know where the fenestration is, what are the voids, what are the glass, what is the opaque portion of that, and then when it actually is applied in 3D model, it looks fascinating because it also has a certain overall idea to in terms of performance design as well, so that you can control how much opening there should be for light and others. Another project where we used AI completely for workplace interior visioning. So all the images that you see here is AI generated, except for one of these spaces, which is the cafe here. what we were struggling with the AI was to understand the scale of the cafe. Midjourney or Stable Diffusion could not understand the scale. It was either too large or it was too small, like a Starbucks. So to make the AI understand the scale, we had to do a white model in Revit like that, right? And then combine it with many other image styles to produce this final outcome. So you are letting the AI know to what level of degree you actually want um, the cafe to look like. Also use it for very large projects like stadiums. The idea that you are able to generate multiple design options for the stadiums, very early visioning, for example, mood boarding is very useful. But as I keep saying, this is nothing uh, fantastical or nothing differentiation, because 100 million users are using it, right? Meaning many architects, many designers, graphic designers across the world. There are totally 100 million users combined for Midjourney, DALL-E, Leonardo and all that, right? So it's not really a huge differentiation as such. It's become part of how we do stuff, like how you use Pinterest maybe, or how you use your phone and Google and all that, right? A case in point is this image that you see. My 10-year-old son generated this image, by the way, right? I walked into his room, he was gaming, he had his leg up the table in a very weird pose, and I took a photograph of that, and I told him, look, just look how ridiculous you look like on this photograph, you know? So, like, be respectful to the study table, put your legs down and whatnot, you know, just being a parent. He asked me to send that picture to him. I sent it, and then he used that picture to actually generate an anime. And then he created a whole anime series about how he goes, wins a karate tournament and whatnot. So he's generated a whole story, right? And then he's going to make some kind of a funky movie out of it. So what I'm about to say is that it's basic AI is everywhere now, right? So how can we get better at this? Of course, there's these two, I would say, two buckets, right? You have Midjourney and other web-based tools that allow you to do certain things which are pretty compelling. They are cloud-based, easy to use. They have a lot of privacy and IP issues. By the way, you don't own anything that you do in Midjourney. For all the architects that's hearing that, that's something you should know, especially if you have very onerous client contracts. You should know that none of the things that you do in Midjourney is owned by you. It's owned by Midjourney, right? So you have all these issues. On the other side, you have Stable Diffusion, which is an open source tool. It is infrastructure heavy, which means you need a very good laptop or a very good PC to be able to take advantage of the GPU. It has got a much steeper learning curve. As you can see, it's got a lot of different buttons and sliders, and each one has a certain way of working, and by changing any one of that, you can literally change the outcome, and it's a bit more harder to learn, but it gives you a lot more control. So with that control, you are able to, you are able to do stuff like take a sketch and render it and immediately see what it could look like without having to model it, right? You are able to take another image of do something in subdivision modeling in Rhino to understand what that furniture is, and then get that immediately rendered like that, right? So in some sense, having that control comes at a price, because you got to really know what you're doing. It's not easy to achieve this, but it gives you more control. So there might be specialists inside our studios who are AI specialists, that maybe that role is coming in the next few years. All right? Okay, so, but in my opinion, what we kind of do is we look at AI in a completely different way as well. And we've been doing this in Gensler for quite some time now. So to us, generative imagery is one aspect of AI that's very popular. Everyone's talking about it, but we've been working on something else which is called generative insights, where AI is not artificial intelligence, but the role of augmented intelligence. So let me tell you what that means. So we feel that there are two parts to cognition, right? Human cognition and machine cognition. What that means is that humans are very good at doing certain things: creative, ambiguous, handling ambiguity, ideation, critical thinking, empathy, sensory perception. These are very human traits that we are very good at, that we, like, there is no other machine that can do all that. But at the same time, the machine is very good at certain things, which is computation, logic, scalability, handling memory, analysis, precision, and all that. So the idea is, on a continuum, on a spectrum, if we have human cognitive on one side and the machine cognitive on the other side, the idea is how can we use both of that cognition to arrive at augmented intelligence. What we call as AI is augmented intelligence, right? So based on that, what happens is, how do I define this augmented intelligence? If I have to very quickly tell you, visually, if I have to tell you what augmented intelligence is, the best example is Iron Man, right? So the vision of the Iron Man, I've talked about this before at SAA, but the vision of the Iron Man is that you have both the Tony Stark and the Jarvis suit at your disposal. What that means is that the suit is very good at doing certain things. Tony is very good at doing certain things, but the suit is not good at what Tony does, and Tony is not good at what the suit does. It is when the suit and Tony comes together, you actually get Iron Man, right? So it is this perception of how do we enable our architects and designers to be better architects and designers using the suit, basically. That's what we are trying to build with our nFarm ecosystem of tools. It's our tool systems called Blocks, Floors, GMP, and Planet. G-Blocks, G-Floors, GMP, and G-Planet. These are a suite of tools that works across different scales. For example, G-Blocks is enabling rapid optioneering at a master plan and architecture scale, where while we design, you get these data dashboards and insights on top while you're designing. So you don't have to stop your design process to go do Excel work on calculating all the different metrics. It's actually automatically done for you. So you focus on design, right? Similarly, for our once you design, you got to be able to measure the performance, which is why we've got G-Planet that is connected to a suite of different engines that allow us to run solar, daylight, wind analysis on our projects pretty quickly. So we are able to make very informed design decisions. And then on the G-Flow, on the interior slide, we've got tools built on top of Revit, which allows us to do something very similar, where you are working on Revit, and while you are doing this, you are able to get all kinds of insights in terms of how many meeting rooms, how many headcounts, what's the workflow, everything is measured for you. So you don't have to stop your process to go do Excel charts, right? So this really redefines the way we do our internal test fits for our workplace projects. And finally, for visualization, we have invested in creating over 3,000 high quality visualization materials that connect straight into our Enscape and Twinmotion platforms. So you are able to create very good renders in-house, and even connect our BIM models to gaming engines like Unreal Engine, with which you are able to navigate spaces, and you're changing design options in real time, you're changing design materials in real time, you are able to show multiple option layouts in real time, right? So all this is available to us because of the investments you make into data and enabling a data-based workflow. So that's our vision for what AI is. Apart from the generative imagery part, it's also the generative insights that actually excites us. And I think that's the vision that we want to build for the future of Singapore as well. With that, we come to the end. Thank you. Yes, any questions? Anything else you would like to know? Yes, all of these are in-house proprietary tools. No, these are in-house tools. These are proprietary tools that we have built in-house. Yeah. No, these are tools that we have built for our own designers and architects. So we are a 6,000 people firm across the world. So this is our differentiation in the market, and these are the tools that our designers actually use. Our designers are our customers basically, right? So we build it very closely, engage with them in the process to understand and redefine the workflow. Um, Maybe in the future. At this point, no, but it may come in the future. Yeah. Absolutely. So when we started, um, when I started with Gensler 5 years back, and when I had to write the vision for computational approach for Gensler, we said we have an audience of 6,000 people. Other startups actually have to gather 6,000 users. We have 6,000 users. So then why don't we create tools that match and then also reinvent how we do certain aspects of our business. So it's very tied to how we do our work. So it improves productivity, but also allows us to be very creative very early on and be more data driven and more insights driven. Yeah. Yeah. So here, the role of AI here is not really AI. It's just rule driven basically, which I think I've told you. I don't classify rule driven scripts as AI. Okay, it's just rule driven scripts. That's it, right? AI means there is some amount of learning coming out of it, right? So in the case of what we do with Unreal Engine and BIM and all that are very specific rule driven scripts that says in my BIM model, say for a hospitality project, I may have a bed, right? And for the sake of documentation, that bed is enough. But then for the sake of visualization, the minute it comes into Unreal Engine, that same bed will look in Unreal Engine with fluffy pillows, with throws, with two shoes strewn around, with amazing bed sheets and colors and headboards and all that. Now, if you put all that into the Revit model, your Revit model will crash. And you don't really need to document fluffy pillows, right? So this is where you understand the workflow of what I need in Revit versus what I need for visualization, and how do you bridge the gap automatically, right? So those are stuff that we have written. So every time they make any change in Revit model, right, I don't have to kind of almost redo that. I know that they are referring, this bed refers to this fluffy pillow bed, right? So it's a low poly to a high poly switch that happens automatically. And it's pretty much rule driven. I would not cheat and tell you that it's AI. Rule driven approach. Even this proxy switch I'm talking about is brand new. I don't think, I've not heard many firms doing it because it requires heavy coding on top of Unreal Engine using blueprints. Okay, so nobody does that so far, right? People use Unreal Engine as a gaming engine, They don't do these kind of workflow optimization where I have a BIM model that exactly represents my visualization model, but they both don't have the same assets. They are completely different assets, and there is a bridge between them. So that already is, I would say, is very novel in how things work. In terms of AI, stability, diffusion and all, stable diffusion and all that, is very 2D driven. It's not 3 dimension, right? We are not yet there. It may happen, but we are not yet there. So to us, the value of 3D is very important. Doesn't mean that there is no value to the Gen AI that I talked about. You saw all the different use cases I had given you, right? So we've been using it, but the value there is at a very early stage for a mood board generation and all that, right? We have very strict policy in the firm not to show the final outcome of AI directly to a client, right? Because to us that doesn't represent design. You got to be able to use these as thinking tools, design thinking tools. You have to assimilate them, ingest them, but ultimately what you provide, the value we provide to the client is more than a render, right? The render is only a representation of a very well designed space that has MEP, everything taken into account, right? So while we use them as thinking tools, mood board tools and all that, uh, ultimately what we show to the client is still what we do a render, what we model and render. Correct, correct. Now here's what I would ask you. Midjourney is apparently trained on 4 billion plus images. Okay, some of the stable diffusion checkpoints that we are downloading today is trained on 2 billion plus images, and Midjourney is constantly training, right? So if we use these tools as creative outbursts of what we wouldn't imagine otherwise, if you train them on the same set of images that you are used to, what you will get is not very different from that. So then what's the point of using AI, right? Yes, there are some LoRa's that are very useful, like the detail LoRa is very useful. There are few ones, right? But to train, or sometimes what people do is to train on a very specific set of style. Like I want manga comics. I want a manga comic style presentation. Then you train on a set of manga style comic images. So then you get that as an output. But somehow for architecture and interior, if for example each firm trains trains an AI in their style of work, what comes out is the exact same thing. They would like, the whole point of using this is to kind of get away from that and be a bit more out of the box thinking, no? So yeah, yeah. Any questions online? Sorry, any questions online? Anyone want to unmute and talk? Wait, I see there are two chats. Okay, oh, that's it. Okay, yeah, more questions. view on tools. Uh, I think for architecture firms, um, the tools will keep coming and going. Okay, you will always have some or the other new tool on the block. I think we just need to develop a mindset of being open, right, to innovating. So, for example, in NUS, we started way back in 2009, we taught people Grasshopper, right? And then we were like, yeah, Grasshopper is not good enough. Let's teach Houdini. And then we did Houdini. Houdini was amazing. It could do so many different things. It's a tool borrowed from the animation industry. It's a tool that's used in Avatar and all these different movies, basically. That's how good the tool is. To me, it's like Grasshopper on steroids. It's a very good tool, but it's also a very complex tool. So we were unable to teach it within one semester, right? So then, okay, then we said, okay, maybe something simpler. And then we did Dynamo, we did generative components. Then we're like, okay, let's create our own tool. And then Patrick and the team there, we created our own tool called Mobius, which is on top of, which is a web browser-based parametric design tool. So in all these, the idea was that it is only a reflection of how someone who is good at his craft will behave, for example. An interesting case point is, so my son goes to this karate thing called as Kisho, I forgot, there's a karate segment which is full contact, okay? So his sensei gave me a book about furniture makers in Japan, right? And when I read that book, it tells me how the furniture makers in Japan are able to create these amazing houses completely made in wood, and furniture completely made in wood, not a single nail, no glue, nothing. It's just joints, right? And how are they able to do that? And when probed further, it's because they have tools that's not available off the shelf, and they revere these tools, right? They kind of pray to it, they open it out, and then they show all these different tools. There are chisels. These are the chisels that you won't find in Walmart. These are the chisels that you won't find everywhere in the hardware shop. It's because they got so good at their craft that they know what they want at the end, so they go back right at the beginning to go create tools that will be able to generate that, right? So it is only a reflection of how good you can get in your craft, right? The more we keep, pardon my language, the more we are stuck with AutoCAD and SketchUp, the more we are not allowing the craft to evolve, in my opinion. The craft evolves not just on ideas and design, but also on the tools available to us, right? Which is exactly the case in point is the Japanese woodmaker, right? Their craft evolved because they could go create those tools. Before that, they could also create compelling furniture that had nails or whatever, but then the way they did these houses, it's standing there 200 years, 100 years, 150 years, right? And it's complete DFMA. You can take the house apart if you want, and it's completely sustainable, and there are no metal pieces to it. It's going through summers and winters and autumns and able to still stand there. So that shows you how much they've understood their craft, and they think that tools are an essential part of their craft, which is how I see architecture as well. To me, I see these tools will keep coming and going, but then to be able to look at it and adapt it is very important for our craft, and not to be stuck in this CAD mindset, basically. Cool. Any more questions? Anyone from here? This side? All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone online for joining us. Thank you.